Whiskey for the Ages is not sponsored or endorsed for any product or program mentioned in this show and receive no remuneration from their creators. Hello everybody, a warm welcome back to our Whiskey for the Ages podcast subscribers. Tonight, I'm sitting in the host chair and I'm Hannah. Dad's here on my left.
And a big thank you to all of those who are tuning in for the first time.
And Alora's here as well on my right.
Hi guys, I hope that you enjoy the show and consider subscribing to the podcast as well.
Subscribing really helps us out, and it'll help you out as well. Subscribers are going to get notified first when new episodes get uploaded. Subscribers help us move up in Google rankings. Higher rankings makes it easier to find our show. More listeners will drive the future content, and more exposure allows us to start putting some video up on YouTube. Don't worry though, we'll never spam our subscribers with unwanted solicitation.
Tonight, I am leading this episode. We're going to be doing the Spotlight in Distillery episode. These guys have no idea what distillery I have chosen. We have 3 whiskeys here in front of us. They have no idea what it is. You guys are going to get to hear their reactions to what we're going to be talking about here tonight.
That's right, so let's get on with this show. What do you got for us, Hannah?
Yes, so drum roll please. Tonight, our focus is going to be on, Laura's doing drum roll in case you can't hear it, is going to be on Knob Creek.
Okay.
Ooh, Knob Creek, part of the Beam Suntory line.
Yes, so let's just get it out of the way right now. Knob Creek isn't a distillery on its own. It is a brand within the Beam Suntory distillery itself. So we're going to be exploring everything about Knob Creek, which, to be frank, this was a challenge for me. I decided to create this challenge for myself because Knob Creek is one of those staple products that you can find in virtually every liquor store, and why not know a little bit more about everything with it and how it came to be what it is. So we're going to start off with the tried and true, just the classic 9-year-old straight Kentucky bourbon. This is their small batch. This comes from Claremont, Kentucky. Distillery Beam Suntory. I'm not going to say that for all of these. It's been spoiled now. Mash bill on this one, we're at 77% corn, 13% rye, and 10% malt barley. We have a barrel chart of 4. That's pretty common for a lot of Jim Beam products. Barrel entry proof comes in at 125. As I mentioned, this is a 9-year-old. It has an ABV of 50%, so that sits at 100 proof. The bottle is not marked as being bottled in bond. That is something to note. And I bought this just today at $35.95 here at my little liquor store right down the way. To begin, like I mentioned, we'll get it out of the way, it's not its own distillery. It is a brand of its distillery. It's always been a brand. In fact, there's never been a Knob Creek distillery in the history of distilling. So that's kind of interesting. So before we get too far into its history though, I know I'm throwing you on the spot right now, but this is a product we're kind of familiar with already. We know this guy pretty well. What are you guys getting on just the nose? I'm not asking for palate yet.
I'll start. This is fresh. It's familiar. It's not overly powerful, even though it is 50% ABV. It's totally familiar to us.
Yeah. The barrel char is there for sure. Laura,
Yeah.
what about you?
I'm getting a lot of cherries.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of floral notes. I mean, I've had this one a couple of times. I really, really like it. So I'm getting cherries. I'm getting marshmallows even. And then there's a type of floral note that I'm getting, but I can't identify
I was
what.
going to say that too. Floral and herbal, both.
It's more on the fruity side for me, though.
And I get a lot of barrel char out of this one. I think that char number 4 really comes into play. I think it brings out those deep sugars that you guys are talking about with either that marshmallow. I think there's a little bit of caramel here as well. To me, this is a very Knob Creek / Jim Beam type of nose.
Yes, yeah. I'm going to go so far as to say that I'm picking up some corn as well. Maybe
Yeah.
some real dry field corn.
Let's go ahead and start talking about this though, because this has a very interesting history despite not ever having been a distillery itself. So we're going to rewind the clocks all the way to 1808.
Wow.
We're going back to when a guy named Thomas Lincoln settles at this place called Sinking Spring Farm in Kentucky. It's about 35 miles away from Claremont, Kentucky, which is where Knob Creek is distilled today, along with a lot of other Jim Beam products. Now, that name might sound a little familiar to you. We'll get to that in a second. This particular area was really interesting. I was looking at it on National Park Services. Extremely geodiverse area, and that's really the whole of Kentucky, to be quite honest. This whole area is in this basin called the Illinois Basin, and it was really interesting just reading a little bit about that and just the geological diversity that's been there since kind of the beginning. All the way back to the Paleozoic era, okay? This is 550, 550 to 250 million years ago. What I thought was most interesting was there's fossils that are at this location or in this area in the basin. Brachiopods, which are a little bit like clams, not entirely like clams, but they are related. Bryozoans, which are things you can kind of think of them as krill. They're filter feeders, and they're very, very small, and corals. So this whole area actually used to be ocean once upon a time.
Just like Idaho.
Pretty cool, right? I thought that was very interesting. But back to our guy, Thomas Lincoln. His name sounds a little bit familiar. Well, on February 12th, 1809, a year after Thomas moves to Sinking Spring Farm, who's born, would you think? A guy named Abraham Lincoln.
Huh?
Abe
I
Lincoln.
was wondering because I'm like, Lincoln, there aren't too many Lincolns in
Right.
1800s.
Right. So Abraham Lincoln is born in this area. He only lives at the Sinking Spring Farm for about 2.5 years before they move to Knob Creek Farm. How crazy is that? Which is only about 10 miles away from where he's born. He's living in log cabins, doing all that. Knob Creek Farm, it's a 30-acre farm, pretty large piece of land there. He's performing chores, he's gardening with his sister Sarah, he's growing up and just living the life as a little kid. This also happened to be the place where he first saw African Americans be transported down the turnpike to eventually be sold into slavery. It's also the place where he first went to school with his sister Sarah. A couple of elementary schools, or ABC schools as they were called.
Yeah.
Free education didn't come until way after he would have graduated from that time.
And these would have been like really small schools, right?
Very small. Just
Yeah.
little school houses, really.
Yeah.
And the Knob Creek, going back to that, he actually nearly drowned in Knob Creek. He had a couple of friends, the Gallaghers, and one of the brothers there, Austin, happened to save his life and prevented our 16th American president from drowning in Knob Creek. Apparently he was a pioneer type spirit, and he'd held out this big old giant branch for Abe to grab onto. It'd been during a time when the whole creek had been particularly swollen, and he'd fallen in and nearly got swept away.
Jeez.
But it was something that Abe had recounted after he'd become president, and his first memories are of Knob Creek Farm, where he started growing up. He only lived there for about 8 years. In December of 1816, they moved all the way to Indiana. But these are really formative years for Abe.
Small world.
Small world, and very, very interesting. So now I'm curious, before we go further, what you guys think about this little 9-year straight bourbon.
It drinks very nicely. And I'm still getting those cherry notes and vanilla and maybe some floral. I do get more of the char now.
Yes, way more char. I'm getting that softness from the sugars, the sweetness that's there. Certainly a trademark, if you will, of Jim Beam products. Leans more towards the oaky side.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of toffee mixed in with this. I'm still getting those herbal notes. The floral's gone, but the herbal notes are there. Mostly in the form of earth. I mean, it's clean earth. I wouldn't go so far as to say petrichor after rain, but this is a clean drink. Like I smelled on the nose. It's clean. It's very warming, so there's spice here. But I'm not sure if I could drill down to a spice. Any ideas?
I think there's a little bit of, I almost want to say clove. Maybe even a little bit of anise, which isn't a flavor that I particularly like. However, with it juxtaposed with that char that you're talking about, Laura, I get the vanilla. I don't know if I'm getting a ton of cherry. I haven't had as much opportunity to sip as you guys yet. But I get all of those flavors as well. It is very warming. I think it's very pleasant. I think the grain is certainly pronounced as well.
Yeah.
Overall, very enjoyable.
Do you guys think that this is kind of chai-ish? Like chai spice?
You have a lot more experience with that than I do.
Okay.
If you're tasting it, then you're tasting it. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
Well, chai is basically really, really similar to allspice, but you add cardamom
Okay.
to it. And sometimes, like when I was making coffee on my own place, I would mix in spices into the coffee blend, and I made like a chai spice coffee one.
Well, that's it. Yeah, everybody experiments. You know, I got to say, it's been maybe years since I've had Knob Creek small batch.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a mistake. I quite like this.
It's very nice. It's very pleasant.
It's easy to drink.
Yeah.
While at the same time still very warming.
Yeah.
I think it definitely tastes like a 100 proof.
Yeah. It's comfortable.
Very nice.
So now we'll move on to our second pour of the evening. I had to get my rye in. So now we've got the Knob Creek 7-year-old straight rye. This also Claremont, Kentucky. The mash bill on this one, it's unpublished. It's assumed to be 55% rye, 35% corn, and 10% malt barley. Barrel char is still at that number 4. We don't know the barrel entry proof on this one. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 125. Age 7 years, like I mentioned, and this one also sits at 100 proof or 50% ABV.
I think all of Knob Creeks are 100 proof or more.
I believe so. Yes.
I could be mistaken, but I think that's where they all kind of sit.
And then I bought this one today as well for just $1 cheaper than that bourbon, so $34.95 today. It was on sale from $38.95. Both this and the bourbon were. So let's get back to our story. I am talking a lot about Abe Lincoln because he's the one who really inspired the name Knob Creek, and he's certainly an iconic president in American history. I am going to fast forward to his demise, though. I know we just talked about him being born and growing up, but we're going all the way up to his assassination. This happened on April 15th, 1865, just after the Civil War had ended, and a month after his second inaugural address on March 4th, 1865. Now, maybe I'm going a little into the weeds here. That's okay. I'm running the show today. I can go into the weeds if I want. This whole second inaugural address, though, I find to be very pivotal, not just in American history, but how he as a president and as a person is perceived by the American public, and perhaps why Knob Creek as a brand was able to grow and be in living memory for as long as it was. So let me talk about this inaugural address a little bit. Whole point of it is to heal and unify a broken nation. We're coming out of the Civil War, one of the bloodiest wars in American history. Still,
if not the most.
So many casualties. He'd been reelected to presidency, and this was the first time in 32 years that a president had been reelected. Prior to him, it had been Andrew Jackson in 1833. He's a whole different type of type of president.
And yeah, if you hear me talking about like Andrew Jackson, it's never good. So I really don't understand why in today's times he'd be reelected.
He was kind of like your influencer president. I'd like to, he just had the popularity going for him and everything else. But yes, very different type of president indeed. And the country hadn't even been 100 yet. We're 1865. We'd been established through our Declaration of Independence, 1776, so not even 100 yet, and we really hadn't had that many presidents that had ever been reelected.
Well, you just think of his 407 years ago. Score is 20 years.
From the Gettysburg Address, yeah. So I wanted to kind of pull a few quotes from this address, because again, I think it really shows a lot about him, where the country was, maybe even a little bit about where the country is today. So these are direct quotes. With high hope for the future, no prediction in regard to it is ventured. It's a very, we gotta keep in mind, this is 1860s, we're talking old, right? The verbiage is a lot more polished, is a lot harder to understand. I interpret that to mean we can have as much hope for the future as we want. We really don't know what's coming, though. You can't make a really sturdy prediction, but you can certainly go into it with a lot of hope. Quote, both parties deprecated war, but one of them would make war rather than let the nation survive, and the other would accept war rather than let it perish. And the war came. Reflecting on how it came to be, and his whole speech really does evoke this, we as a country have sinned. Now, of course, the 1860s, again, this is a very Christian time period. You didn't have a whole lot of other denominations coming in and out. People by and large are Christian and God-believing, God-fearing, all of that. So this particular quote, trying to say war inherently is sin. And it was started by slavery, but ultimately war was the price of the sin, and everybody suffered for it.
And everyone caused it.
And everyone caused it.
That's kind of how I'm interpreting it, is like it takes two to tango.
Yes, but one would rather make war rather than collaborate, and the other felt forced to accept war rather than to let it perish.
So I'm going to peel back the onion just a little bit. Laura, you mentioned 407 years ago.
Yeah.
Gettysburg Address. On the inside of the Lincoln Memorial, on one wall is the entire Gettysburg Address. Mm-hmm. Opposite wall is his inaugural address from the second.
Yes, on the north wall is the second inaugural address.
If you stand in the monument and you're looking at this massive piece of marble that's Lincoln, and you're looking at the Gettysburg Address, do yourself a favor, turn around and read the entire address. It's as poignant as Gettysburg Address is. but very few people ever even know it's there.
And it's not a long address either. This one actually is the second shortest inaugural address in American history. The only one shorter was George Washington's second inaugural address, which only constituted about 100 words.
Wow.
Yeah.
Efficient.
Lincoln's here, his second address totals around 700. But I want to continue on with his quotes here, talking about the Confederacy and the Union. Quote, both read the same Bible and pray to the same God, and each invokes his aid against the other. It may seem strange that any men should dare ask a just God's assistance in wringing their bread from the sweat of other men's faces, but let us judge not that we be not judged. The prayers of both could not be answered. That of neither has been answered fully. So Lincoln is definitely of a Christian mindset and really trying to bring it home. We're in the midst of war. Ultimately, this is up to God's discretion how things are going to go here. But I read it as a little bit of a dig of we're both asking for his aid in terminating this war and bringing each other's troops home safely. But it is a little bit odd that one could ask for aid after participating in an act like slavery, in wringing their bread from the sweat of other men's faces.
It's really a timeless quote because you could really apply it to not just Civil War times, but even what the Christians were doing in the Crusades, because they were asking for God's aid all throughout that. But at the same time, they were raping, pillaging, and plundering. So
many wars are started because of a religion, not just Christianity, but it's an interesting and unfortunate commonality.
Because you're thinking like, oh, if I do this, then I'm going to be in the good graces of the deity, and it's cruelty.
Yeah,
cruelty amongst men.
And like you said, poignant through all of time. And the last quote I have here, and really the one that drove it home and makes this address in particular a resounding, this is how we're going forward. Quote, with malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations.
Care for your neighbor.
Care for your neighbor.
People don't talk that way anymore.
People don't talk that way anymore. But the vernacular through all of this, and these are just a couple of quotes that I pulled, are really focused on the we and the us. He had every opportunity to gloat, to shout his triumph over the South when he was, he could have done and said virtually anything. He's president now. He's got a lot of sway. But his whole motive here is we have to move forward. We have to bind up our wounds, and we have to acknowledge the harm that's been done to both sides. There's widows on both sides. There's orphaned children on both sides. We have to find a way to move forward.
He was a very interesting person. Like, I remember reading from my U.S. history class, he had a high-pitched voice, and honestly, whenever he was addressed like with a major issue, he'd go off on tangents and start telling stories. He wasn't this very, very like, let's do this, like opinionated, this is the only way, the right way. It was tangent, profound point. There you go.
Yeah. And his first address before the Civil War had really erupted, he made it clear that he and Congress really were gonna try to keep a hands-off approach to slavery, and each state has its rights to do each thing. Let's try not to get into war. But by the end of it here with this, he's very upfront. This was wrong. This happened. Slavery was at the heart of why this happened. But we have to move forward now.
Yeah. Who knows what would have been, you know?
And I think this address, and of course, nobody wants to be remembered for an assassination, but I think that the way he approached leadership, the way he approached togetherness, we know Reconstruction was a big deal after this and trying to come back. The admiration for Lincoln was there. He was reelected for one. You know, his whole campaigning is happening during war. And people are looking up to this guy. People are admiring this man for what he's trying to do for the country. And I think that's what helps a lot of his legacy last the way it does in people's minds. Especially, I'm going to go back now. We'll go back. We'll reel it back. We'll go back to Knob Creek, where his story really kind of started, and come back to the Rye here in particular. The Rye knows. What are we thinking here?
Marshmallows, and you know, the first thing that I thought of was like, I wonder if there is a scent that is like this sweetness of spring. It smells really, really fresh to me. Like if you go outside in nature and you're smelling everything, it smells sweet. I'm kind of getting that from this.
So I've been bouncing back and forth between the rye nose and the bourbon nose of the two we're playing with here. And the bourbon nose is darker.
Yes.
Most definitely darker. And like you say, Laura, it's fresh. But yet they're from the same hood.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can
they're
I say it
definitely
that way?
related.
Yeah, they're from the same family for sure. You know.
Yeah, they're definitely related. I mean, I noted marshmallows from both.
Yeah. The burnt sugars are there from both. And even though this is a rye, it's not poppy like a rye is, traditionally speaking.
It's a dark rye.
It's a pretty dark rye. I mean, there is, again, we don't know the mash bill of this for sure, but if there is 35% corn here, that's pretty significant.
It is.
That's a lot of corn. So...
It's dark because there's wood here.
Yeah.
There's char here. In a rye, that's not as common, I don't think.
Right. And it's 7 years old, too. Ryes, you'll find a lot of ryes that are kind of more in the 2 to 4 range. 7 years, it's getting a lot of time with those fluctuating temperatures of Kentucky to pick up a lot from the wood.
It's a nice nose.
Yeah. So that's the nose. We'll get to the taste here in a minute. I know I went on a tangent. I think it's really important. I think it's very poignant, not just for the context of Knob Creek as a brand, but important even for the context for the nation today. Like I mentioned, the admiration for Lincoln, strong really the entire way through his presidency and beyond. 1898, so we're about 30 years post-Civil War, there's actually notes of Knob Creek appearing on whiskey labels at this time. Not attributed to any particular distillery then, but Knob Creek is showing up.
As a region.
As a region. Well, no, on whiskey. That's the name of the whiskey in 1898.
Maybe that's just what people were referencing it as, like saying, oh, well, it's a whiskey from Knob Creek.
It appears more like a branding for the labels. And again, 1898, it's important to know the context there. That's just a year after the Bottled and Bond Act of 1897. I wish we knew the first distillery attribution. It gets kind of hard when you peel time back that far for a host of different reasons. One of them, lost records. Copy paste that answer onto everything that we don't know a lot about. There's this other thing around the time called the Whiskey Trust. I'm not going to go too far into that because that will definitely be far off into the weeds if we go there. But essentially the Whiskey Trust, it involved a lot of buyouts of smaller brands, i.e. maybe Knob Creek here, which were also lost to the trust. Originally this thing was called the Distillers and Cattle Feeders Trust. It had started in 1887 in a town called Peoria, Illinois, which happened to be the mecca of whiskey making at the time in our country. Not Kentucky, Illinois. That's where everything was being done. This trust was led up by a guy named Joseph Greenhut. The whole thing of it was to monopolize the market, prevent overproduction, so that's why they're buying out a lot of smaller brands there, and it's all in the hope that they get to protect their profits from increasing liquor taxes. What I will say on that front, from 1868 to 1913, there'd been a 90% increase in liquor tax in that time.
And if those of you guys want to go back in time and look at one of our history episodes, look at the one about scandal.
Yeah.
Half of those taxes were never actually collected by the U.S. government. They got into somebody's pocket.
It was the time of monopolies.
And Joseph Greenhut and crew really got to see a huge turn of profit there if they didn't have to pay this liquor tax. So we got lost records, we got the Whiskey Trust, and then of course came the big bad P, the Prohibition, which lasted from 1920 to 1933 before that amendment was pulled back. Going almost right up to the end here of Prohibition, 1931, the Lincoln Tavern is formed at Knob Creek by a couple named Hattie and Chester Howard. It was a dance hall. People would visit there all throughout the 40s, just a little log cabin. This is really showing that the Lincoln legacy is sustained, it's happy, and we're drawing attention to Knob Creek as being just this really nice homely home and calling it the Lincoln Tavern. Now at the end of Prohibition, 1933, you've got Penn Maryland Corporation. It's formed by National Distillers Products Corporation, Big Kahuna, and the U.S. Industrial Alcohol Company. Now that one, the U.S. Industrial, that actually was a remnant of that whiskey trust that I just mentioned. Whole point of it was to produce blended whiskey. It had been the hope that Penn Maryland would do more along the lines of straight whiskeys, and then the Industrial Alcohol Company would do more of the blended. There was a lot of overlap there. And I also want to take the moment to mention, since we're talking about Penn, Maryland, Pennsylvania and Maryland happen to have a very steep history in rye in particular. You've got the Pennsylvania Monongahela rye, which we've referenced a few times here on the show. The Pennsylvania Monongahela rye, that's of a purer variety and spicier. The rye content is a lot more so than it is in the Maryland rye, which had a higher corn content and was therefore sweeter and smoother. This one probably, this Knob Creek that we're drinking, probably falls more in the line with the Maryland variety.
And a lot of the beams found their way into Kentucky by way of Pennsylvania back to Maryland and then into Kentucky from the east.
Quite the triangle.
Yeah, quite interesting.
Quite the triangle. And then in 1935, and you can actually look this up online. I wish I could show you a picture of it. There is an original label of a Knob Creek bourbon label that was produced by Penn, Maryland of the National Distillers Project. This was back then, in 1935, it was a 93 proof It was a straight bourbon whiskey. It came out of Cincinnati, Ohio, which is where a lot of that Penn, Maryland / National Distillers product stuff came from. And the little label shows that it's for a half a pint. I thought it was very interesting. You guys should definitely Google it to take a look at it. It's a fun little picture. It's got like a tavern sign label at the top. And
Is it a half a pint, a cup?
It's a cup. It's a cup.
A cup of
Just a little measuring cup.
A cup of whiskey.
A cup of
It's
whiskey.
it's a ration.
Yes. And it's got some trees, and it looks very cute. Definitely check it out if you can. And it's really interesting because this particular moment really is like its own time capsule, because only a year later in 1936 you had the National Distillers. They absorbed the U.S. Industrial Company completely, so now it's just national. Penn, Maryland is dissolved. So this label, this branding of Knob Creek at this time is finished really kind of before it began.
So there's 1 year.
Pretty much. We don't know how old it is. There's no notations about that on the label. Maybe it's only a little 2 year. Who knows? It's not a 100 proof.
It says straight bourbon whiskey on it, so it's 2 years.
2 years, something like that. So, but very, very cool that the Knob Creek, again, I'll say it a million times. I know it's a word I probably shouldn't, but that legacy really is continuing on here and finding a way to survive even through a lot of tumultuous time, whether you want to say Civil War, Prohibition, changing hands of businesses. Really interesting. So what do you guys get on the palate, though, of this rye?
First off, I like it. Second, it's warm. Maybe even warmer than the bourbon. I get that deep woodiness, if you will. It's earthy. I hate saying it this way. It's dirty. It's dirty, but in a good way, because it's grainy.
Yeah.
Really grainy.
There's texture.
Yes, exactly. There is some sweetness here, but the sweetness is not the predominant flavor. At least not for me.
I think it's almost like if you had a really, 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 really ripe yellow peach, but you're really mostly just eating the skin of it. You get the sweetness from the peach, but it's that texture from that fuzzy peach fuzz that's coming in, and I personally really love this, but I'm the rye fan. So, Laura, what about you?
I really like it. I think that it's a tad bit spicier than the other one. I think that there is some nutmeg. More nutmeg notes on this one. Maybe some clove. But honestly, I like how when I was smelling it and then tasting it, how similar they went hand in hand. I really, really liked that. So I'm going to stick with the whole, I'm getting the marshmallows, getting a little bit of cherries. Honestly, I'm getting a really strong fruity.
I've got stale cinnamon. Like cinnamon that's been around for a long time in too big of a container.
Are you trying to tell me something?
No, we have a large container of cinnamon that
you're telling me something.
It doesn't have very much left. We either need to do something with it or do something with
I'll
it.
dust it on some hot cocoa then.
There you go.
Very nice.
So the last one that I've poured, there's a lot in the Knob Creek lineup. Some of it's readily available, some of it's more of the limited edition or allocated type release. But I've got the Knob Creek Single Barrel Reserve, also 9 years old. This is another straight bourbon whiskey. We're back to that mash bill of 77% corn, 13% rye, and 10% malt barley. So now I'm switching it up on you guys. We've gone bourbon, rye, we're back to bourbon. Barrel char number 4 again, barrel entry proof 125 again, age 9 years again. Where we differ here is that the ABV, we've jumped up a little bit. We're now at 60% ABV or 120 proof. This one's
I guess
also
9 years is just the magic number.
It's a magic number for a lot of distillers for sure. Price paid on this one. I didn't buy it today. We did have a bottle kind of lying around that I was able to use for the purposes of this. I looked up how much it would cost over here today if I did grab it. $64.95. So we've added an extra 30 bucks or so on there. And now we're almost up to current day with our little Knob Creek. In 1987, the brand, we're still talking national here, National Distillers, it's acquired by what was then known as Jim Beam Brands. Now it's Beam Suntory, as we know. And this came through the National Asset Acquisition. So everything that National had under it, the naming convention, everything went under to Jim Beam. In 1992, Knob Creek is created as part of Booker No's small batch bourbon collection. There's several brands that we know come from the Jim Beam family from Booker No. It sits right in the middle with the Booker's brand, Baker's, and Basil Hayden's. Knob Creek is kind of meant to recognize the Bottled in Bond Act, even though these products, the rye and the bourbon we had earlier, aren't actually bottled in bond. It's not written on there on the label for that, but it is recognizing that time period when Knob Creek may have first been introduced, again 1898, a year after the act, and of course flavors from pre-prohibition as well. So really starting off and trying to nail that time period down in the Knob Creek brand still today. What do you guys get on the nose of this one?
I'm going to start this. I'm going to say something that I've not said about a nose ever in my entire time. This smells like Bailey's and amaretto.
Huh.
To me.
In what way?
Well, amaretto kind of has that bitter note to its sweetness, and then I feel like based off of the other two that we had before this, I'm still leaning towards the really, really sweet notes. But this has a more alcoholic feel, so I'm kind of just taking that sweet notes and then just putting it up on a alcoholic level. So that's kind of why I'm leaning towards amaretto and Bailey's.
I almost think the alcohol level is tamer in this one than it was in that original small batch bourbon.
It's funny you say that because I don't agree. In my first note...
Wait, who are you disagreeing with?
Me.
I'm disagreeing with Hannah. When I put it to my nose before I even inhaled,
It wants to hurt.
I got a singe.
Yeah.
Yet I see what you're saying, because once you become accustomed to it, frankly, it's because we're accustomed to high proof bourbons. This is easy.
Yeah.
Easy on the nose. But at first sniff, there's a hit there.
Yeah.
I think there's stronger vanilla tones here as well. Stronger cherry.
I get more
really
dark
like
fruit.
it. Yeah.
I get dark fruit here. Maybe even, you said apple? Maybe even baked apple.
I think so.
Yeah.
And there's that cinnamon.
Yep, the
that
cinnamon's
note,
still there.
which goes with the baked apple.
It's also kind of similar to pastry. Like, you know,
Yeah.
you
There's some pastry here.
You bake a pie crust.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot like a little apple pie in a glass.
Not as sweet. I don't know that I would say this is as sweet. There's some sweetness here, but I think it's more from vanilla than it is from sugars.
I think that it actually smells sweeter than some of the other ones.
Really?
I think the other ones, the grain was really forward. This one, I think the sweetness gets to come out a little bit.
I think it's sweetness from fruit.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
But it's also oaky. It's also got char to it, which it should. I
Yeah.
mean, number 4 char, and 9 years in a barrel, it should be picking up lots of char. Mm-hmm. Which it does.
It's a good one. So let's continue. As some of you may know, whenever I do these spotlights in distillery, or in this case, spotlight on a brand, I do like to know a little bit more about the charitable or nonprofit actions of the brand / distillery. I think it's a feel-good moment that we don't get very often in the world anymore, so I want to take that moment. Knob Creek has a history of being very charitable. One of the more recent ones that I found, going back to 2023, Jack Harlow Foundation. Jack Harlow is a rapper. He has his own foundation. They partnered with Knob Creek for a limited edition single barrel for his tour at the time, which was No Place Like Home tour. Jack Harlow is from Kentucky, so a lot of the foundation partners that he has with him, they're meant to support the people living in Kentucky, particularly with a goal of ending the inequality in education over in Kentucky. There's a lot of organizations that he supports. I wrote down a couple here, but it's not exhaustive, and I just wanted to give those a shout out. And I'm just looking off of his foundation website, jackharlowfoundation.org. There's the Louisville Ballet, which inspires connection, conversation, and a profound sense of community by striving for bold collaborations, by nurturing the next generation of artists and celebrating diversity and creating access for all. There's Queer Kentucky, is a diverse LGBTQ plus run nonprofit based in Louisville, working to bolster and enhance queer culture and health through storytelling, education, and action. There's Centro Latino, which focuses on building bridges that connect Latino communities with the information and services they need for a better life. There's Sowing the Seeds with Faith, which focuses on engaging youth academically and socially in the greater Louisville area and mastering developmental challenges via educational expectations, accountability, structure, and faith. And then the last one I wanted to touch on was Sponsor for Success, which gives a network of professional businesses and civic leaders committed to lessening the social and economic disparities affecting poor and underserved communities.
Wow.
Though that's not exhaustive, there are several others that he has listed on there that he supports and gives back to within his foundation. So I thought that was really cool, and his collaboration with Knob Creek for that single barrel there too. And then even more recently than that, there's the Medicinal Whiskey Charity. This is something that Jim Beam Distilling does pretty regularly with these guys. This year, in fact, on December 12th, 2025, they're going to be hosting their 4th annual Medicinal Whiskey Charity Winter Gala. Whew, hard to not stumble over words there. The Medicinal Whiskey Charity raises funds for the University of Kentucky's organ transplant program, as well as Kentucky Children's Hospital. Fred No from Jim Beam is going to be donating towards the University of Kentucky organ transplant program this year. He's donating the, quote, oldest ever cask strength single barrel Knob Creek to be bottled. It's a 121 proof 12-year-old.
Wow.
And it's a bourbon. So new to the scene, and this was actually just a few days ago. We're recording right now on November 2nd. On October 28th, the oldest Knob Creek released at 21 years has been announced at 100 proof. It's going to sell for, get this, $250.
Oof.
Okay, so it's a hefty price, but 21 years, that you kind of expect that. Y'all know I don't prescribe to whatever the distillery says that it's going to smell, taste, and finish like, but I'll do it for you guys because I'm sure somebody likes that stuff. So for the aroma on this is per SuntoryGlobalSpirits.com, is, quote, seasoned oak, caramelized sugar, and subtle smoke, end quote. That seems believable to me at 21 years old. I would think a lot of caramelized sugar and seasoned oak would be in the nose there.
Yep.
On the palate, it's supposed to be, quote, deep caramel and char, built alongside hints of fruit and toasted oak, end quote. Again, believable. I'll buy that. And then the finish is supposed to be, quote, a long, warm finish of toffee and charred wood, end quote.
I wonder how much toffee is going to come through that charred wood at 21
Yeah.
years.
I
Who
mean,
knows?
for those of you who may have tuned into our last episode where we had John Angus we talked about this, in which case these are very stereotypical flavors and aromas that you get from bourbons. So take it with a grain of salt.
Yep. I still wanted to provide those because, it can be fun, I suppose, but I always take it, like Laura said, with a grain of salt. And before we wrap up here, I want to know what you guys think on the palate of this single barrel, this 120 proof.
I bounced from what we're drinking right now, back to the very first one. This is a mature 9-year-old of the first one. This has just got some more oomph to it. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah.
I like it better than the first. I like the first. I like the second. Of the three, this is my favorite. Finish? Yeah. Finish is nice and warm in the throat, in the chest. It's a great place to be.
Laura?
To be honest, I don't really have a favorite or a least favorite. I think I agree with everything that Dad said, and that this is everything that the first two whiskeys had, except it has that extra oomph. I will say that the finish is longer. I do get more char from this. But in terms of favorite, least favorite, I just really like them all. Like on any given night, if I'm feeling like I want just 100 proof, the first two are great. If I want something a little bit more amped up, this is great too. So I'm not even going to bother ranking my whiskeys.
Yeah, I don't think I could rank them either. I agree with everything that you guys had to say about the oomph.
Wow, we're all in unanimous agreement.
Very rare for us. It is a mature version of that original 9-year for sure. The proof is there. I think there's more fruit here, more maybe brown sugar a little bit. I think that...
I can get behind the brown sugar.
Yeah.
And I think, like Laura, I don't really want to give a ranking here in any way, shape, or form, because it would really just depend on the mood of the day. If I wanted something more complex, I'd probably lean towards this single barrel, the 120 proof.
That's not to say any of them aren't complex, though.
No, I think they're all perfectly complex. I just think that this one probably offers the biggest shock value. But I really, really like that little 9-year straight bourbon 100 proof.
At half the price.
At half the price. You really can't go wrong with it. It's remained pretty stable over the years, too. When I was looking up our website to grab those vital stats, there was a time when you could get that for $30.
Wow.
And that was what the regular price was, not on sale. It's gone up a little bit, but not to the degree where I would pass over it. And maybe I've passed over it too much and we need to bring it back into the fold a little bit. I think all three of them are winners in their own right. And it was fun getting to jump back in with them and go on this little tangential, admittedly, adventure. But I think it was very well worth it. What do you guys think?
I liked what you did there. I realize it's
fun.
not. It's a distillery spotlight, but on a very focused point of a distillery.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, we could go down that road. In fact, we did, I think, once before when we talked about Old Forester.
Yes, from Brown-Forman. Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many different brands are out there under umbrellas?
Yeah. And this one was really interesting because Old Forester, while it's under Brown-Forman Distilling, Old Forester has a history just as a distiller. This really never was one. It's always been a label. Always. And watching that label make its roots and continue throughout hundreds of years is pretty impressive. Mm-hmm. And how it tied in with Abe Lincoln was a fun factoid for me. I had no idea that was a thing, and how that name came to be in the first place for whiskey. And the whole thing was really interesting to learn about. I just enjoyed this one.
And it's purely happenstance that Knob Creek is still there and on the grounds of Jim Beam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can go there. I don't know how open it is right now with the shutdown, because it does fall under that that National Park Services, but you can go to Knob Creek and see the birthplace of Abe Lincoln and tour all around there.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
and see all of these things that who knew were going to inspire what we got going on today.
Anna, that was great. I liked it. Do it again. All right, so let's jump into this fortnight in whiskey. I've got a couple of stories for us to look at, and then I'm going to move on to some bourbons to seek. Hannah just noted one that's out there, 21-year-old Knob Creek. Wow. So my first story, outdated DTC laws deprive consumers of innovative spirits. So DTC, direct-to-consumer spirits shopping report is out. That means that we got distillers selling directly to us, to people, without going through a liquor store, without going through a distributor. I like these stories because I am looking forward to seeing the three-tiered system get punched in the cheek. There, the 2025 Direct-to-Consumer Distilling Report is out. The report was commissioned by Sovos Ship Compliant and the American Craft Spirits Association. The report was conducted by the Harris Poll with a sample size of 2,004 U.S. adults, among whom 752 said they drink craft spirits at least once per month. We were not polled, but we drink craft spirits at least once
A week.
Okay, a week. The margin of error in this report is said to be plus or minus 3%. This year's report shows 67% of legal age drinking Americans want to see the laws expand so that direct-to-consumer spirits can be shipped directly to our houses. The
It
report...
would certainly make things more efficient.
Well, somehow we got to collect taxes on it, and I think that's going to be the biggest stick-up because the government wants their hands in everything.
Yes.
The report found outdated shipping laws failed to meet consumer demand. This year's data found 84% of the regular craft spirits drinkers want to legally purchase their favorite craft spirits through direct-to-consumer channels. 82% want to see the laws changed to expand direct-to-consumer spirit shipping. According to Alex Corral, Regulatory General Counsel of Sovos Ship Compliant, constraints on craft spirits with direct-to-consumer shipping are limiting consumer choice, significantly impacting the bottom line for distilleries, and they're blocking access to the broader interest in the market. So to foster change and expand direct-to-consumer shipping, consumers and distillers alike must work with the legislators for the right to allow direct-to-consumer shipping of spirits. It's been claimed a change in direct-to-consumer shipping laws can be a win-win for the entire distribution chain. Changes could allow consumers to seek brands currently available in person. In other words, if you go directly to the distiller, you can buy there. But it would also broaden the availability to retail sales. Now that seems kind of counterintuitive, but here's how that would work. Let's say I go to 45th Parallel, a little craft distillery in Wisconsin. I buy there, I like their stuff. If it's available to me locally, I would buy it locally. It's not. It's not also not available for them to ship directly to me. So how do I get it? The only way today is to get an airplane and fly there and get it. So this would help open up channels if it's available through other means. So 77% of regular craft spirits drinkers have tried the craft spirit, like I just mentioned, while traveling. Out-of-state enthusiasts like ourselves would purchase more if the spirit was available near their home. So that's where I'm coming up with this.
This may sound like a really dumb question. Are there some distilleries that sell their product online?
It's more of an issue of certain states allowing it. There's only 9 states that allow it to be sold.
The reason why I ask is because when I just think of direct to consumer, I affiliate it with, if I were wanting a specific piece of sheet music, I could not get it through the music store that I work for. I might have to go directly to the publisher to get it, and that is something I can order online. So I was just curious if that was even a notion.
The challenge is the taxes.
Yes, yeah.
It's
more than just shipping because you're dealing with alcohol.
Exactly. The way the 3-tiered system's set up, the distiller sells to the distributor sells to the user.
So then do you think that in order to make it to be direct to consumer, like more of that, do you think that distillers are going to be branching out onto online services?
It's all
to do
law.
that?
They have to change the law first.
Yeah, but if the law gets changed, do you think that that's a route that
Absolutely.
people will take?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So there's some precedent here. Nearly 20 years of historical data from the legal direct-to-consumer wine shipping demonstrates a strong correlation between direct-to-consumer success and performance in wholesale distribution and retail. So let's say I'm in Washington, I go to a winery and I like their wine, they can ship it directly to me because there's a precedent already in place. There's taxation methods already there. So we just need to fix it so that spirits can be done the same way.
Right.
The 2025 report demonstrates that craft consumers across the country are supporting the direct shipping of spirits. Expanding access would represent a win for everybody, distillers, consumers, and local economies.
I mean, it opens the door so much for everybody. I mean, I'm a big shopper of Etsy. I am ordering from Etsy nearly on a weekly basis these days. But all of the shops I'm buying from are craft makers, whether it's of soaps or detergents or purses or, skincare, whatever. All of it is very finite in where it's located. I couldn't go to any grocery store and find those products on the shelves, but I have the means to order them through Etsy, and I get to support these small craft makers of all of these things, and it just bolsters the economy all around. And it allows me more say in what I actually get to purchase and who I want to purchase from.
There you go.
So modernizing the distilled spirits with direct-to-consumer shipping will help out everybody. I mentioned craft distillers. They're the ones getting hurt the worst. Mm-hmm. Craft distillers are struggling right now because people aren't able to get out and go to their locations.
Yeah.
Once they go, they sell some, but how do they get it out to the people? Mm-hmm. Over a year ago, or about a year ago, maybe it was, Alora and I went to a little tiny winery here in Idaho.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Their wines are not sold outside of their facility.
That's right.
So they have to depend on people stopping by their location, which frankly is not in the easiest place to stop when you're going between here and there.
You gotta drive 45 minutes at least away from here, but then you gotta get onto a dirt road that just goes and goes and goes.
And you have to know it's there.
Great wine. They also have really, really great brown sugared pecans that I ate an entire bag of. But yeah, it's not convenient or easily reachable towards us.
Yet, I would imagine if we really dug into it, they could ship it to us.
Probably. I mean, we're in the same state, so.
Yeah. My second story, Kieran is silent over Four Roses sale rumor. A Financial Times report claims the Japanese-based Kirin Holdings is working with investment bank UBS to find a buyer for its Four Roses bourbon line.
Oh,
This is big.
that's really big.
The alleged price tag is $1 billion.
With a B.
That's a B, US dollars. The Tokyo headquartered drinks conglomerate has declined to comment on this.
Shocker.
Along with Four Roses, the company also owns the Kirin beer brand. I've had some of that. Japanese whiskey Fuji, and Australian gin Four Pillars. Kirin's Australasian arm, Lion, purchased Four Pillars back in 2023. Kirin's financial results for Four Roses in the first half of 2025 are showing revenue of $79.9 million, or let's just say $80 million US, and it's only a 0.2% dip on year-over-year sales. That's not much in this current economic climate.
Right.
The group's total alcohol beverage division saw its entire revenue decline by almost 20% in the first 6 months of the year. This is a cash cow.
Yeah.
I can see why they'd like to unload it, because this will give them some revenue to bolster their other products.
Yeah.
Founded in 1888, Four Roses was acquired by Kirin back in 2002. The brand revealed a new look in 2023, its first redesign since 2006. The company operates a distillery and a visitor center in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, and the bottling and warehouse facility in Nelson County, Kentucky. Four Roses has plans to introduce a set of new single barrel whiskeys each year for the next several years, cycling through its 9 different recipes, complementing its flagship bottle. The global whiskey sector is facing significant challenges. We all know that, including overproduction as demand softens, raising costs and tariffs. My guess is that there is a buyer out there for them, and they're just waiting to get that price tag down below $1 billion.
And then we'll know about it as soon as it happens, because that kind of thing would be public information.
Yeah.
Would that be a Beam Suntory, or would that be a Brown Foreman, or would it be
I think
a
it was
Sazerac?
I think Four Roses, and I don't know. I think Four Roses would sit very nicely next to Woodford and Old Forester with Brown Foreman. I think that it's got the quirky edge to it. I think that it's got the availability factor going for it, tried and true going for it. I think Brown Foreman could be a happy home for Four Roses personally. But
of course, that's purely speculation on our part.
Yeah,
we know nothing.
I know nothing. I really know nothing. I'm just saying, if there was a distillery that I would think Four Roses could sit in, I'd probably...
Or maybe it's a company that we know nothing about.
With a lot of money.
With a lot of money.
Or some trust fund baby who wants to get into distilling.
Yep.
That too. Who knows? I know nothing.
My third story, aging bourbon barrel numbers hit an all-time high. According to the Kentucky Distillers Association, the KDA, Kentucky has hit a record high of 16.1 million aging barrels of bourbon. In addition, there are another 1 million barrels of other spirits aging in the state. The figures are based on inventories submitted by distilleries and warehousing companies to the state's Department of Revenue back in January. Taxes on the casks have soared by 163% over the last 5 years, and Kentucky distilleries are also paying $75 million in aging barrel taxes this year alone. That's a rise of 27% over last year. Barrel taxes are based on the assessed value of the aging barrels, which have reached $10 billion this year, a 25% hike on last year's record $8 billion. The industry delivers unmatched tax revenues which no other state comes even close to experiencing. Most of those barrels won't be ready to bottle until 2030 and beyond, and Kentucky is poised to lead American whiskey into the new global markets. But this future is not all roses. Is that pun intended? I don't know. The whiskey industry is facing challenges. We all know that. Tariff uncertainty, tax hikes, increased competition, production pauses and job cuts, and shifts in drinking habits. These have all resulted in a drop in exports and in sales declines. The other thing is bourbon can't be made overnight. The challenges can't be fixed overnight.
Yeah.
Producers need to work with policymakers to find solutions and ensure bourbon's long-term future. One positive for the industry is the gradual tax relief. I think we had a news story, we talked about this a while ago, due to a 20-year phase-out of duty paid on the barrels. That was passed back by Kentucky's General Assembly back in 2023. Next year marks the first year distilleries will benefit from the move. There's going to be a little bit of tax reduction, a small 4% drop in what they're currently paying. There are now a total of 127 licensed distilleries operated by 103 different companies in Kentucky. It's a record. It just amazes me, how many distilleries. Kentucky is the 10th largest place for craft producers to operate, with 76 distilleries as of August 2025. But that's down from 104 from a year ago. Bourbon is a point of pride and opportunity as bourbon tourism adds to the revenue stream. The Bourbon Trail had a record 2.7 million visitors in 2024, which was up from 2.5 million in 2023. Additional help will come with a quick return of tariff-free trade agreements with the European Union, United Kingdom, Canada, Mexico, and other allies will play a role in the bourbon resurgence, creating thousands of jobs that have recently been lost. Expansion over the last decade has geared towards the global growth. So they've made no bones about it. It's not going to U.S. consumers. This is going for expansion overseas. Tariff-free trade is needed for that to happen. And for America's native spirits to flourish, we need to see tariffs go away.
Yeah. Who knew?
Some new bottles for your next whiskey scavenger hunt. A new Russell's Reserve Bourbon is Wild Turkey's strongest whiskey ever. Wild Turkey has a lot going on over the past few months. Last June, it saw the launch of its latest edition of Russell's Reserve 13. At 123.8 proof, it was the strongest to date at the time. In early October, the final release of the Master's Keep series arrived, said to be one of the best bourbons of the year. Now comes the latest expression in Russell's single rickhouse lineup. It is part of the distillery series, which showcases the effects of single warehouse maturation. At 128 proof, this bourbon ranks as the highest ABV ever bottled by the Wild Turkey Distillery.
That's going to be hot. I mean, not just for proof, but Wild Turkey is a spicier whiskey overall, in my opinion. It's very formative. It just punches. So at 128, that almost makes me scared.
Let's find one.
Okay.
All right.
You're going for a wild turkey?
I don't
Sure.
mind Wild Turkey.
I'm fine with you going for it. It's more with Dad, because Dad
has a bias.
So,
yeah.
We've talked about this before. When I know I'm drinking Wild Turkey, I don't care for it. When somebody gives me Wild Turkey in a blind,
like
it's
an advent calendar.
It's the one I choose.
Yeah.
As best.
Especially the rare breed.
So, what's going on in my head? Russell's is the smaller batch lineup from Wild Turkey. It has been guided by master distiller Eddie Russell, and the single rickhouse lineup was first released back in 2022. The bourbon has been aged at Camp Nelson. Now, it's a legendary complex of warehouses located just a few minutes from the distillery. It's been noted for quality bourbon. Each release has been aged in a different warehouse to showcase the environment in which the barrels have been stored. This year's release was aged in Camp Nelson E. It's a 7-story warehouse built back in 1946 along the Kentucky River, which has more shade and a different wind patterns than the other rick houses. We talked about this last episode with John Angus, and he was really an advocate to see airflow. How 2 barrels sitting side by side, one with good airflow and one without good airflow, would taste completely different. This warehouse also has a dirt floor, which creates a cooler microclimate. The barrels were pulled from the 5th floor, where it is said the barrels have a balance of dark fruit, baking spice, and rich oak. In comparison, the 2024 release came from Camp Nelson B, a rick house that had a lot of sunlight exposure. Camp Nelson E distiller tasting notes on the palate: vanilla, caramel, maple, and oak, followed by some baking spices of cardamom and cinnamon, along with some licorice, menthol, tobacco, and some toasted almonds. That might be the largest set of distiller tasting notes
There's
I've
a lot
ever
there.
heard.
Yeah.
So cardamom, is that yours, Laura?
I don't know.
125 proof? I don't know
Cardamom
either.
and cinnamon.
It's not the proof that's really there. It's just I'm looking at all the stereotypical flavor profiles.
But cardamom isn't common in a
But-
profile that a
but
distiller puts out.
oftentimes you can group it with allspice,
That's true.
like chai spice.
Fair enough.
So I don't know. Take it with a grain of salt. It's certainly intriguing, but I don't know.
So this is going to be a big ask. Russell's Reserve Single Rickhouse Camp Nelson E is available now in liquor stores around the country with a suggested retail price of $300.
And that's probably a no from me.
You could get one of those 21-year-old Knob Creek bourbons and one of these little guys that we had tonight for the price of that.
Damn.
There you go. Just saying.
Just saying.
So my last one, Jim Beam has just released one of its most premium bourbons. So this one's also going to be a little bit of a stretch. Kind of hard to find. The James B. Beam Distilling Company has just announced the relaunch of its top shelf brand, Hardin's Creek. Now when they say top shelf, they're putting this above Booker's.
Ooh, okay.
They've released a trio of 11-year-old whiskeys aged in single warehouses. Originally launched back in 2022 as a pair of bourbons, Jacob's Well, a blend of 15 and 16-year-old liquid, and a Colonel James B. Beam, a young 2-year-old whiskey, to show the contrasts in aging whiskey.
It probably has different colors too, because I don't know, when I see an older whiskey, it's usually darker, at least for bourbons.
After that, the brand released a trio of 17-year-olds, all distilled at the same time from the same mash bill, but matured at different Beam production sites. The Hardin's Creek is the brainchild of 8th generation master distiller Freddie No. So his dad was Fred, and Fred's dad was Booker. Freddie No is known for his experimentation. He's blending all of the Little Book series. The Hardin's Creek is another chance for him to play with additional production factors. The relaunch is another trio of bourbons, each aged for 11 years and bottled at 110 proof, and matured in specific warehouses, showcasing how aging locations affect the flavor. The 2025 releases are labeled 1, Mushroom. It's aged in Warehouse R on a single floor. Warehouse R has no windows to allow in sunlight or airflow. Mushroom is said to have rich caramel notes. Number 2 is Beaver. It's aged in Warehouse W, a generally humid 5-floor warehouse. Beaver is said to offer bright citrus tones. And the last one is Owl, aged in Warehouse G, A 9-story warehouse, one of the few remaining tall buildings on site, all is said to showcase oaky maple flavors.
Ooh. Of course I would be intrigued by the owl one.
Yes. Yeah. Each bottle has a newly designed label featuring a representation of its name, and all 3 bottles are being released at $150 each. At $150, people are not likely to buy them all as a set. Without tasting them side by side, it might be hard to understand the effects of the warehouse maturation. Will they resonate with consumers, or will it be another flash in the pan? That remains to be seen. So if you're a curious bourbon drinker or just a die-hard Beam fan, consider giving them a try. And then I'm sorry to say, you'll probably have to let us know, because unless they hit Idaho, it's going to be hard for us to grab them.
Yeah. But if they do hit Idaho, I had the opportunity to buy all 3,
sure, why not?
I probably would. What the hell?
Wouldn't it be interesting to see that side by side?
Yeah.
To see what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
Why would you name something mushroom?
It's a very interesting name.
Why would you name something beaver?
Maybe I don't know. I know Maker's Mark, when they put up their private selects and they have the unique names for those stick out. And of course, they're already doing that sort of thing with bookers by having each batch, and the little book too, each batch, each chapter having a name. It creates a higher attachment.
Yeah, there is continuity within the distiller. I like that. So, Hardin's Creek, everybody.
Yeah, I'm mostly intrigued by the owl one, because owl's kind of like my spirit animal.
And you do like maple.
I do like maple, so.
But Hardin's Creek to become a potentially big brother, little brother, a brother to Knob Creek, which we talked about today. Mm-hmm. There's only a few episodes left in this series, though. We're almost to the end of season 5. We've been chugging right along. We do still have some things in the works, though. I'm researching another archaeology episode, so you can expect to see me here in the pilot's chair in the next 1 or 2 episodes. Dad's got more history planned. I think he kind of nailed down his topic today, so that should be pretty interesting. We'll have our listeners pick whiskey review. We'll put up the options for you guys to vote on as we get closer to that. We're still narrowing down exactly which unicorns in our bunker we're going to put forth to you guys. And then, as always, we'll offer some tips and tricks along the way and what we've learned as we enjoy all of our pours.
Absolutely. So, please be sure to send your comments and subscribe to the show. Remember, subscribers do get updated notifications whenever we do post something. It really, really helps us move up in the Google rankings, and it helps drive future content. I know that we've been really looking forward to branching out to YouTube and even putting ourselves up on video for face reveals. But yeah.
I'm not sure if anybody really wants to see what I look like.
We've already got like the AI thing set up there. Kind of gives a little bit of a clue. But we're really happy that you guys could join us for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. It was a little bit different from some of the Spotlight and Distillery episodes we've done in the past. I still thought it was a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys did as well. And we'll be looking forward to talking to you guys again soon.
Yep. And so ends another episode. Please join us for our next. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.